Hi, I'm Gabby and I'm from Mod Ventures, and today we're going to talk about the fears you need to overcome in order to delegate well. First of all, before we get started, I want to invite you to like and subscribe to our videos. We spend a lot of time working on all these different ideas so that we can bring more value and more information. So we really want you to join our community, and we hope that you will find value in everything that we provide you. All right, so delegating is one of those things that are just pretty tough. And I realized in my video, the 7 things that business owners need to stop doing, delegating was one of those big things that people needed to do. And it's really, really hard. So I really wanted to talk about what those barriers look like and how to kind of overcome some of those fears. I identified 2 things, 2 barriers, basically personal issues, which are the internal staff or managers or supervisors actually are the ones that are having the personal problems. They have a personal issue with delegating. And those personal issues could be anything from perfectionism. If they were to ask somebody else to do the work, that it wouldn't be to their standard, or it would be sloppy work and they'd have to come back and clean it up anyway. And so that's a personal problem that many people have a hard time overcoming, especially if you're a perfectionist. You have a hard time believing that somebody else is going to do the job as well. There's also the fear of losing your position or your value. So the thought is, if I give away this work or if I teach somebody else how to do it, that I may lose my job. They may not see me as valuable anymore, and therefore I'm not needed. And so I think understanding a person's position and how people actually progress into leadership within your company is really, really important. It will help people overcome that fear of potentially losing their position or their value. Next, I think a lot of people internally are worried about what other people think. Maybe other people are going to think that I'm not doing enough, like I'm giving away all my work. And so therefore, I'm worried about what my coworkers might think about me. That's usually a barrier to delegating the work. And so you've got to really push through that. Trust, I think, is probably one of the biggest barriers, and we talk a lot about trust in the workplace at our firm. We've read The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team Together, and that is the foundation, is trust. And then we've talked about braving the anatomy of trust. I think that leaders have to spend an immense amount of time in building trust with their staff and their employees and helping everybody understand how to build trust. But there are some people who are just going to never, ever, ever trust another person doing the same work that they're doing. And that is definitely a personal problem. That is not something that you can fix in somebody. They have to learn to trust people on their own. Seeing a therapist might help, but that is not something that you as a business owner can force anybody to overcome. The last internal issue that we have identified was the guilt. And the guilt is, I feel bad about giving this boring, repetitive work that I don't find exciting, but it's necessary. And so, again, I think you're focusing a little bit more on the people-pleasing aspect, worried that they're not going to find fulfillment in the work, when really that person that's just coming on board wants a job. They want to learn, and that's the first step to learning. And so you have to really get over that guilt and believe that this is a foundational step in that person's career, and see that you're actually helping them instead of hurting them. So those are the big internal issues. And again, perfectionism, fear of losing position or value, worried about people's opinions, trust, and guilt. These are all things that are personal issues that each person deals with in a different way. And again, these are not situations where a business owner can really fix. This is something that each person individually has to go and identify on their own and do the work themselves. And in your organization, you have to have a culture that helps people understand that this is how you progress. You must get over some of these personal issues so that you can progress and grow in your position in this firm. So it's super, super important to at least identify and think about those internal problems. Next, we're going to talk about the external issues, which is more like the business problems. These are things that are foundational things that are missing actually in the business. And as business owners, you have to create an environment that helps not only, build trust and put systems and processes in place that will help staff, gain the ability to delegate, but you also have to make it a favorable environment for them to do so. The things that we identified as barriers to the delegation of work were basically no current written process. So there's no standard process, it's never been written down, there's no information on how to do the work. So it'd be very difficult for somebody to actually go out, hire an employee, and then bring them into their business unless you're planning to do training and document process at the same time. That's a very valuable way of kind of overcoming that problem. And we've done that many times where somebody brand new comes on board and there's no written process, but we work together to put that process in place. And sometimes when you don't have a lot of time, that's the best thing to do. The other barrier is that you just don't have the right people. This could be because of some of those internal issues that we stated above. They just psychologically cannot get over certain things. And so they may not be the right person for the company. And so you have to really evaluate your hiring process and what you can do to evaluate the folks that are coming in to create that culture and that environment that delegation is fine. And it works. As you're scaling your company, I think that a lot of people are going through issues like their staff may not have enough experience. And so, we've gone through that over the last 8 to 9 months where we have brand new people that are coming into the firm, and it's really difficult to delegate to them because they're so new. And so there's that fear that they just don't know enough. And so, again, you have to put some processes in place to help them not only delegate, but also provide opportunities to the staff that are coming in. Otherwise, you'll never gain that trust, and they'll never gain the experience. So it's like a two-edged sword. You have to learn to delegate and give people work to do so that they can gain your trust and they can get the experience that they need. We talked a little bit earlier on about the culture issues, but culture is a big deal. You have to have a great environment. You have a good hiring and firing system so that you always have the right people on staff, so that culturally you're building trust in the system. You're trusting that when we hire people, they have the skill set to actually fulfill the need. And just because they have a resume that says that they've done this work before doesn't necessarily prove that you can trust them. You've got to actually go through the process of delegating and see how they do, so that you can see if it's a good fit. And if it's not a good fit, see if there's a improvement plan that you can put in place to help get that person there, or altogether, let them go and start over. And sometimes you have to do that. Delegation is very much about an investment in relationships and understanding what individuals can actually accomplish. And I think that's super, super important for supervisors and for managers to get to know each other so that they can see where people are comfortable and where they might need to work on a few extra things. I think in order to have a really great relationship with your staff and to be able to delegate well and confidently, you've got to have a relationship between the newer staff to the supervisors and managers. There was a couple of resources that I came across while I was doing some research here, and I thought I would share, and I'll post the videos below in links. But Colin Boyd, he had a YouTube video that talked very much about a system called PAT. You define your purpose, you take action, and then you give time frame. And I won't go into it very deeply, but it's a very simplified version of how to delegate. I thought that was really, really powerful. Dave Ramsey, his EntreLeadership podcast, or not podcast, it's actually a YouTube channel. He talks about building an environment and a culture where you have high-performing people and how to delegate to those high-performing people. And so I think it's more about environment and culture. And then Brian Tracy, who is like the time management guru of the century, he talks about the 5 myths of delegating. And I think it's a really important point that he made was that managers We're there to help the human resources, help the human capital, help the people produce to the best of their ability. And I think that a lot of times managers and supervisors forget their calling or duty to their staff because they get tied up in so many other things, but it's actually a manager's responsibility to help people grow and help people excel in their career. I hope that this video has been so helpful for you. I tell you, this has been a bit of a learning curve for me to go back and document some of the knowledge that I have and articulate it to my team so that they can learn to start delegating and leveraging the staff and the technology that we have available to us in our firm. Thanks so much for watching today, and don't forget to check out the links below with all the resources that I mentioned in the video. And if you have any other tips or things that you've tried, make sure you comment below. We'll see you next time.